Happy Saturday. We're here, we're here, we're here, we're here. Happy Saturday.
What's going on, y'all?
Hey, it's Renee.
And Gil from the Rich Relationship Refuge.
And guess what? We are in the comfort of our own home. Hallelujah. If you only knew, we'll do a video about that, but not today.
You know, we were, as you see, we were in a unusual spot last week that
Yes.
was a little bit, sometimes you got to be taken out of your comfort zone. And when you do that, you see what's really going on in life. And that was definitely out of our comfort zone, just doing it from the car. But when you make a commitment, just like in a commitment in a relationship, you have to keep your word. And that's basically what we did. So no matter, sometimes you don't have the perfect environment to be in, and sometimes you don't have the ideal situation to be in, but you still have to do what you say you're gonna do.
Yes, very, very true.
So go ahead, babe.
Today.
Okay.
Today, our episode, are y'all ready? Drum roll, drum roll, drum roll. Give you some time to get on here. Today, our episode, we're talking to our couples. Today's episode is sex. Is it the mystery of marriage?
And we say marriage specifically because go ahead.
Because, okay, full disclosure. Let me just start off by saying this. This episode is for people who are married. We are going to talk about sex and intimacy. And why do we say it is for people who are married? Because sex was given to marriage as a gift. It is not to be used when you're dating. It is not to be used when you're engaged. It is not to be used to test someone out. So sex is the mystery of marriage.
You hear that phrase, and I can't say that I've said it when we were just dating or when before I come to know Christ, where you say I want to test drive the car, so to speak, or see if we're physically.
How do you know if you're compatible?
Physically compatible or sexually attracted to each other. Well, those things get developed through the time of your relationship once you're married.
Together.
Yes.
Because what I want to share is, okay, so we always say,
I gotta adjust the camera. Go ahead.
Okay, we were not saved when we got married. We did not grow up in a Christian home. We did not have Christian parents. So how could we tell you that sex is for marriage? Because it is. And the reason why it is because one of the biggest issues that people have in relationships is we feel that people are cars. People are not cars. They can't be test driven. And test driving a car versus test driving a person is different. Because you're not going to compare every other car that you drive to the car you drove before. You're really not trying to test drive this person. You're trying to see if they fit the standard of the person from before. So it's totally different. And so we need to be careful that we don't make inanimate objects have more value than people. And one of the things I can say with certainty is that God created sex for marriage. Renee, why do you say that? You didn't grow up in church. You got saved later. You had sex before marriage. And yes. I did.
Yep.
I did. I had, my mother, people used to say, we're going to be very raw during this episode. They called it screwing. You may be screwing, but you're not making love. You're not having intimacy until it's in marriage, because God only covers it. God only ordains it. God only gives you the freedom that you need to really enjoy it in marriage. Because the thing that makes all of your other friends different from your husband or your wife is your ability to connect with them physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And just because you are screwing, it doesn't mean that you're connecting physically, emotionally, spiritually. That can only happen when God is a part of it.
You know, I think sometimes people think about the word, and we're going to talk about intimacy today. People think or say the phrase, we're intimate. Well, it's not the same, and we're going to kind of dive into it a little bit and talk about the specifics, but they use that word, like Renee just said, screwing, and there's some other colorful more words.
Yeah, my mother that was the nicest way she said
it. And day and times, hooking up, friends with benefits, all those different phrases that whatever generation you grew up with, they probably
Yeah.
had a phrase for it. But some of them are more conservative when they say, "Oh, we were intimate." Well, it's still the same thing,
Well, it's not, because really you can be intimate without sex,
but
and you can have sex without
man, we're
intimacy.
going to go into that, and that's
Yes.
one of the topics that we're going to talk about. But that's one of the things we want to make the distinction when people talk about it from the perspective of, because I think that kind of minimizes it, the
It does.
impact when they say, "Oh, we were just intimate." Well, the impact that it has on your relationship, whether it's your marriage or your premarital or engaged stage, is still going to be the same.
It is.
It's
And
still
it's going
going
to
to
still
be.
have the same impact. And let's just be clear. We always say Jesus, Jesus, we're faith-based, Christ-centered, word-oriented. When you have sex outside of marriage, the Bible calls it, and you can call it a lot of things you want to call it, but let's just call it, the Bible calls it sin. And the Bible tells you that the wages of sin is death. And we have a lot of, just because you don't physically die, it doesn't mean that something didn't die. Because when you give away something to someone who doesn't value you, and you give them something valuable,
Right.
a part of your value dies. Because you have to realize that you are the gift, young lady, you are the gift, young man. And so you don't give that prize or that gift away to someone who doesn't value you. And the way that they show you that they value you is through a lifelong commitment.
Yes, and so we're going to actually dive into it. We were kind of setting it up for you,
Yes.
and for the past, what was it? Well, I can't even tell you how long we've been doing
Okay,
this.
the first week we did work
Well, I'm
on
just saying for the past
the
four or
beginning of the year.
all the live sessions that
Yes,
we've been
this
doing
is
all the
meant
way
for
up to this,
couples,
all the way up to
for
this,
married people.
all the way up to this prior point is we were talking about singles and things like that, but now we're talking to specifically our married
In
couples.
January.
Even though the information is definitely applicable to people who are in relationship, especially if you haven't walked down the aisle and got a ring and all that kind of stuff,
Yes.
you are actually getting information that you should be thinking about now in the dating stage that is definitely going to be applicable in the marital stage. And we really are, even though we talked about it from a sex part, sex is such a very, very small part of your relationship, even though it's important. I'm not trivializing, not minimizing
And
it
it's
any
beautiful.
way of that. But it is so many other things in your relationship and in your marriage that are going to have a bigger role and a bigger precedence that you're going to realize, especially after you've been together for a while, that it's not as big as a deal as you think it is, as when you were young, where you are just a walking bag of hormones and on both sides, and you just think, I have this insatiable appetite that just cannot be fulfilled. Well, that can be an indication of other things,
Yes.
but it is going to be satisfied if you're in a healthy relationship, a
With
healthy marriage,
God.
with a marriage that will get resolved, and then it'll be turned, your attention will be turned towards other things that are just as important.
Yes. And it's not that intimate sexual and emotional and physical and spiritual intimacy is not important, because it is. But we want to make sure that we say that this episode is specifically geared towards people who are married.
Yeah.
This is not for singles. This is not for dating. This is for married people.
And we're taking this from the workbook that we did a couple years ago, but this information is
Where's the
still
notebook at?
applicable. It is the marital code to oneness. This is the workbook, though. We did the marital
The
code.
book is that's the book.
I know this is the
Oh.
workbook, babe.
Oh, okay. The
This
new
is-
book. That's the old one.
It's still, the information is
Yes.
still in here.
Yes, it is. It is. It is.
That's where it's still taken from, but we still want to expound on it and talk about it from this perspective, so you can know where we getting this information from.
And
Why
you can
did
go
we?
to Barnes and Noble and order the book in person, or you can actually order it on Barnes and Noble.
Why are we talking about it?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Our marital code to oneness. The singles blueprint is also, you can go to Barnes and Noble and get either of those books, but that's what we're doing today. We're talking about our marital code to oneness, which is the workbook that we did during the pandemic, and now we have a 2024 version of it.
No, go ahead. So we can start talking about the difference. Renee kind of alluded to it a little bit already, talking about the difference between sex and the intimacy side. But I think we need to really establish and really talk about the differences and what they really are. And the shortest part is the sex side. The sex side is just a physical appetite, physical action or act that you're actually performing with another person. Renee, and she can expound on it. She talked about it where you can have sex and not have intimacy, but it is impossible to have intimacy without sex.
No.
With sex. How
Well,
did you put it? How did you
I
phrase it?
said you can have sex
Mm-hmm.
without intimacy, but you can't have intimacy without sex.
Yes.
You
Now,
need intimacy. Intimacy is the part of your relationship that makes you feel connected.
yep.
Hi, thanks for joining us. It makes you feel connected. It makes you feel seen. It makes you feel valuable, and that goes beyond a physical act. And so the intimacy comes from something that takes for you to be vulnerable. And so many times people are having sex, but they're not being vulnerable. You don't know each other. You don't know each other's likes or wants or needs. And so it's just important that you understand that intimacy, I love how it says, into me I see. And so, yes, you need to have intimacy. Intimacy is one of the most important things to have in all of your relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with your relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
The more intimacy we have with God, the less demanding we will be for the people we're in relationships with.
You think about intimacy, it's I think about it from the aspect of three different areas. You got the relational part. When we say you can't have the sex without the intimacy, you have the relational part. If you don't have a relationship with person, I'm not saying, hey, how you doing? My name is Gil. And then you get naked and have sex. Where's the relationship part? So it's relational. And then I think this is a big key. It's emotional. That emotional part of intimacy can't be established with just a casual passing by. You may be physically and visually attracted to each other, which is a part of it, but where's the emotional connection for it? That's why it feels so empty afterwards, or you can get up and just throw your clothes back on and go on about your day like it was just a drive by at a grocery store or something like that. So if you don't have the emotional side of it and you don't have the relational side of it, you definitely are probably haven't even thought about or comprehended the spiritual side of things. Because if you are focused on it from the spiritual aspect of it just alone, if you say, okay, before I get intimate like we described it or have physical connection with this person, let me test it and see. Do I have a spiritual connection? Do I have an emotional connection? Do I have a relational connection with this person that I'm going to be physically connected to from a physical aspect of it, that side? So it's those things you have to think about, almost like we talk about it all the time on this channel and on these episodes and all these conversations. You have to do the assessment. You have to do some self-discovery. You have to know, what are you gauging decisions that you are making on or comparing it to? Like Renee said at the very beginning, we're using the Bible as our point of reference, our foundation, our rock. It always comes back to this. And the Bible is always going to be talking about the relational, the physical, the relational, the emotional, and the spiritual aspect of every decision that you're going to be making, especially when it comes to your relationship with God. And now you're talking about your relationship with another person. We are talking about the mystery of sex. Misung, we are talking about the mystery of sex in a relationship, taken from our marital code to one, the mystery of marriage. And from our marital code to oneness. But
yes, from our workbook. And one of the reasons, hi, thanks for joining us. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about, is sex the mystery of marriage?
Yes.
And I will say that yes, it is. And let me explain why it's the mystery of marriage. In all of your other relationships, you have friendship, you talk, you spend time together. The thing that makes marriage different is that marriage is the only legitimate source of sexual intimacy. That's what makes your relationship with your spouse so different and valuable. That's something that you share with only the person that you stood before God in a covenant with.
Right.
And so while all of your other relationships may have intimacy, you have intimacy with your therapist and with your parents, but the only person, or your friends, but the only person you're going to have sexual intimacy with is your husband. And the reason why I call it the mystery of marriage is because I believe that sex makes you not all there. It affects your judgment. It makes you see that person with awe and wonder. And I believe that in a marriage, you need to be able to see your husband or your wife with grace and with awe and wonder, not someone you're not married to. And unfortunately, what we're doing is we're sleeping with people, and then we can't be objective about them because we've given them something that they have not earned, and then we have a hard time moving on. And so although yes, did we have sex before we got married? Yes, we did. Was it wrong? Yes. Was it sin? Yes, it was. And so what we're trying to do,
And to caveat that, that was before we came to know Christ.
right? We didn't know
We
Christ. We
didn't know
didn't grow
any
up in
better.
church.
Yep.
We didn't, and a lot of you. So we want to make sure that you know that you and your sexual gift is a gift to be reserved for marriage, because you don't want to see a boyfriend, friend, or a girlfriend without being objective. And that's why family and friends are important, because they can see this person objectively. Because guess what? They haven't slept with them. And so that's why I believe that sex is the mystery of marriage. It's what allows you to be together for years and years and years. And each time you make love, you reset that awe and wonder. And each time you're intimate, you reset that. And so and that's why when we see couples who are struggling in their sex, it's because they're struggling in their intimacy. If they're not spending time together, if they're not talking, if they're not connecting, then there won't be intimacy. And without intimacy, you can't have sex.
You know, and it's funny, Renee made that point, and this is something, and speaking specifically, and just beyond yourself, just be yourself. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining
and like you said,
us.
you're married, and just me son say that you said you're 15. Well, this information is definitely going to be applicable for
Yes.
you as you're growing up and you're getting into relationship. But just beyond yourself, just be yourself. This is actually a very, very important point that we're talking about, because when people are in relationship or in marriages, we go back to the emotional, relational, and the spiritual side. When you have those voids that have been there in your marriage, it's going to affect the intimacy in, or it's going to affect the sex in the relationship, especially if you don't have those connections established and that are solid. You know, you have that benefit of being able to focus on this one person, and to develop these areas that you may be a little short in, to say, you know what, if you want your sex to be better, look at your spiritual side, look at your emotional side, look at your relational side of your connection with your spouse, to say, where are we kind of missing it at? Where are we kind of where we need to tune up a little bit? Because I find my wife the most attractive when we have spent time together. We have invested time, effort, and energy in just being together with our clothes on, doing activities, or just being in each other's company and relating to each other and talking to each other, that we are, just think of it this way. It's like making deposits in the bank. Every time you make an emotional or relational or spiritual deposit into your spouse, you're drawing on your intimacy bank. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You're making those deposits that when things get a little slow, or you're getting a little bit low in those areas, you will have something that you are able to make a withdrawal on, because you have made deposits over time. And if you haven't been making deposits, you can always start today.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I love how he was explaining how those things being deposited causes things to grow. What's the same thing, just anatomically? In order for your body to have a reaction to your spouse, there has to be, we call it foreplay. Foreplay is not just when you get in bed. Foreplay is the phone calls. It's the rubbing up against each other. It's praying
small
together.
gestures, yeah.
It's making, it's all of those things that we talk about all the time. A lot of times couples don't realize the reason why your sex life is struggling, and you may have a good sex life, but you may not have good intimacy.
Or emotional connection.
You need to have those things Gil was talking about. It needs to be, everything about God is a threefold cord. A threefold cord is not easily broken. So if you're just having sex, but you don't have intimacy, it's not going to be fulfilling. And so sometimes the reason why people are so adamant about the frequency of it, it's because they're looking for the physical act to do with the spiritual,
Or
the emotional, and the relational. You can't just rely on animal instinct. You can't just rely on your body, because guess what? Your body's gonna change.
And sometimes, just imagine if you're sick, or you're physically not able to perform in a physical aspect, what do you have to draw on then?
Yes.
And if you haven't, but I guarantee you, if you've been making emotional, relational, and spiritual connections, you can get through those dry seasons where you can't have sex. Let's just say it's because of an injury or an illness that you can't have the physical connection with your spouse. You can't have it. So what else are you going to be drawing on, or what else are you going to be tapping into to say, how do we get our relationship stronger?
Yeah.
And those are things that you have to think about. Now, some of the things that may have impacted your intimacy starts with, go back and look at childhood, or your younger years or your younger time, where we're talking about how has my intimacy been hindered. And that's where you got to do that self-assessment again.
Yeah.
Go back and look at, what did I do, especially if you were promiscuous, or you slept around at a younger age. You have been making these connections with people without the three things that we've already talked about, and it has made a deficiency in your inside.
Because you think that more sex is going to fill that void, but honestly, the only thing that's going to fill that void is
Your relationship with God.
Yes, your relationship with God. Because we talked about it. Somebody asked us, have we ever cheated on each other? No, we've never cheated on each other. And the reason why is because I have a commitment to God. I have to stand before God. And so if you're fulfilled spiritually, emotionally, and relationally, you won't have an insatiable appetite for anything, let alone just for, because if you're trying to make a physical connection take the place of a spiritual connection or a relational connection, it's not going to. But if you never knew that, you just thought, oh, I'm just going to get married, we're just going to have sex all the time. It's not just about sex. Intimacy is so much more important, and it will sustain you so much longer, because it takes more of you being intentional. It takes for you to be aware of yourself. It takes for you to be honest with yourself. It takes for you to communicate and talk about what you want and what you need. And so many times people make it seem as if we're just animals and we can't control ourselves. But a lot of times our desire for things come from a deficiency or a not understanding it. Like the person who's on here who's 15. I wish someone would have explained to me, because they tell you don't have sex. Sex is for marriage. Yeah. But they don't explain why it's for marriage.
Or what's the benefits from not having the sex
Right.
before you get married.
Yeah, and so to tell someone to not have sex before marriage, but not to explain to them why they shouldn't. God is not saying don't have sex until marriage because he doesn't want you to have fun. God doesn't want you to have sex until marriage because he doesn't want you to give to someone. The Bible says don't give your pearls, don't cast your pearls before swine, and don't give what's holy to dogs. If someone is trying to get something from you that is reserved for marriage without marriage, then they're trying to steal from you. They're trying to mislead you, because once you give them something that's reserved for marriage, you can't get it back.
Wow. That's amazing. And that's a good part to say, because as you think about it, and just be yourself. Thanks for the comment. And it is something that you actually have to build upon. I'm looking at your previous comment that you put down about, even if your sex is good, if you build into the intimacy deposits, you making those deposits relational, physical, relational, emotional, and spiritual, it's just going to get better.
Yeah.
And that's a definite
And even
plus.
when you get older, because Gil and I have been together since we were 18 years old.
Over 39 years.
Yes, we got married. We had sex before marriage, and it was wrong. It was wrong then. We didn't know what we were doing. Lord, forgive us. We repent. And so we're trying to help to keep. And fortunately for us, neither one of us were extremely promiscuous. I was not promiscuous. I didn't have sex with 50 different guys. Gil didn't have sex. So the more people you have brought into your relationship, the more challenging it is. And the harder it is for you to
get over.
We were so young, we didn't know what we were doing. So I didn't have nobody to compare.
We know we were doing physically either.
Yeah, no. We didn't know. We didn't know.
Not compared to now.
Yeah,
No,
we learned each other so well.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, but that's talking about what we were talking about is some of the childhood things that has hindered the intimacy development in your relationship that can cause an impact in maybe your marital relationship now. Now this is actually talking about, if you're just joining us, you're just checking us out, we're talking about the mystery of sex in marriage. And we've been talking about some of the things about sex itself, but also the intimacy. And you may even ask yourself, okay, I hear what you're saying, I get it, but how do you build intimacy with your spouse? If you've never thought about it, it's not something that it's a recipe, or if you haven't done premarital counseling or anything like that, or you haven't had someone to be able to share this information with you, we'll give you 3 things how you actually build the intimacy. It starts out with trust.
Yes.
When you think about trust, how much do you trust your spouse? And I'm not talking about with the bank book, the checkbook, and things like that.
Your heart.
You have to have trust.
Your fears.
You have to have that level of trust goes back to emotional, relationally, and spiritually. Do you trust them in those areas? Mm-hmm. And if you don't, that's something that you guys can talk about and discuss and find out why.
Right.
So when you think about that, trust has to be there. If you don't have trust, you're missing an important element in building intimacy.
Intimacy.
So you think about it. If I don't have trust with my spouse in every area of our relationship, there's going to be a hindrance or a growth area in the intimacy.
Yes, I totally agree. And I think so many times we don't realize we think it's physical and sometimes it's emotional. Sometimes it's psychological. Sometimes it's like you said, trust has to be built. And guess how trust is built? Over time. And it takes consistency and it takes for you to be objective and it takes for you to be vulnerable. And so we skip the things that give you a foundation and then you wonder why things don't work. It's because these are things that no one ever taught us. We didn't know. We've learned over the years. And so we feel that it's our responsibility to share what we've learned and what we know and to make sure we're making deposits in the next generation because we have girls. And so therefore they may not listen to us now, but guess what? They can push this video and go back and listen to it. Not just them, but also I think about the people that we know and love, all of our Rich Relationship Refuge community. We feel that we have a responsibility to not just love the life that we're living, but to also share it with other people.
Absolutely. So when you think about that, that's the part and trust. And just like you say there, just be yourself. Trust is hard.
It is.
And it goes back to what we talked about previously. If you had some in your earlier life as a younger person, if you've had some issues and challenges in the relationship development areas, whether you are a child or a young teenager or a young adult, that is going to impact your today when it comes to building trust. If that trust has been violated on the emotional, the relational, and the spiritual areas, it's definitely going to be challenging. But thank God that we have a Savior who has went to the cross for us and said, you know what? I can help you get over that.
And you know what's an important element to help to build trust also? Forgiveness. We have to be able to forgive. And forgiveness does not mean that what the person did to you was right. Forgiveness only takes one. I have to forgive because God forgives me.
Right.
And if we can't forgive, the reason why trust is hard is because we don't know how to forgive. And we think that, well, if I forgive them, that's going to give them the right to do it again. No, it does not. Forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. So one of the important elements of building trust is learning to forgive, especially to your spouse, is extending empathy and grace and understanding, having an understanding in a marriage relationship that if Gil does something that hurts me or that I don't like, I have to be willing to first automatically say, okay, it wasn't on purpose. He didn't do it intentionally. But I need to go in myself and figure out what was it about it that bothered me and then come to him and say, hey, I didn't like this, or I have a problem. When you did this, it made me feel like this. Not you make me sick and you always doing this and you are. It's like you don't in your volume and your tone. So you need to be able to sit with yourself and say, what is it that's bothering me? What is it that I need that I didn't get, or what is it that that he did that I didn't ask him to do?
Right.
And so you have to be, and a lot of it goes back to our childhood. It goes back to who taught us. You know, I always talk about the thing, who told you that, who hurt you, and how do you make the people that around you feel? There's a lot of things we got to ask ourselves to get ourselves in a good place,
Right.
so that we can build trust.
So we talking about how do you build intimacy? It starts out with trust.
Yes.
The next one, it starts out from being vulnerable.
Yeah.
If you can't be vulnerable with your spouse, you have to start looking at what is holding me back. What is it? Why do I have an issue with being vulnerable, being open, being transparent with my spouse? And that is going to impact the intimacy that you actually have with them. They can't answer that for you.
Yeah.
They may be able to help you on the journey of discovery of saying, well, why can't you be vulnerable? Goes all the way back to the beginning. We talked about it already.
And I'm going to share one of the reasons why we have a hard time being vulnerable: fear of rejection. We're afraid that if I'm vulnerable, I was vulnerable before, and that person told me I had ugly feet, or I was vulnerable before, or that person said something about me that I didn't like.
Yes.
You can't allow the fear of what happened before to keep you from giving this person that you've committed to spend the rest of your life with an opportunity to say something that maybe you may not like. Say something that may hurt your feelings, but when you get hurt, you can't. We talked about it. Are you building on love or fear?
Yep.
So we have to build on love, not fear.
And even just what you said there, it is so challenging to be vulnerable. That is something that Renee, and especially for us guys, you know, we tend to have a big pride. Sometimes they call it ego,
Pride.
you know, where it's just another word for saying, and especially we came from the east. I come from the east side of Detroit. You definitely didn't want to be a punk, and they associated vulnerability with being a punk, being weak, being those things that can be a hindrance in you as a man. Well, I can tell you this, as a man and being married for as long as we've been together, 36 years, Renee has definitely helped me become more vulnerable with myself and who I am and the things that I have apprehension about and fear and anxiety and trust, distrust issues, all those different things
Yeah.
to help me understand this is a safe place.
Yeah.
This is a person I know for a fact has my back. And when you know that you have that in your spouse, you can open up yourself and be vulnerable and share with them things that even there were things that I shared with Renee that she didn't know about my life even after we had been married. Let's just I think it was 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
She still didn't know because I had to feel safe and I had to be vulnerable. You know, the enemy will work on you and tell you, you all right, you good, don't say nothing, keep it to yourself. This is one of the things that most men that I've talked to from all our sessions that we worked with people that I hear a lot. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm all right. That's them saying, you know what? I can't be vulnerable. I can't be vulnerable with just anybody.
Yeah.
And when you have a spouse that you can't be vulnerable with, these are all the things that are just building up that is holding you back from building intimacy in your relationship with other people. And that's going to lead to the third one, which is the connection part. You definitely will not have connection with this person
Right.
if you don't have trust and you can't be vulnerable. There's definitely not going to be a connection to build the intimacy that you're seeking that has been a void that you have just looked at as a filler, and maybe you've used sex as the filler because you don't have the emotional, the relational, and the spiritual
connection. And I love that. And, you know, and so the connection. Well, guess what you got to do in order to build a connection? You got to spend time. You got to be available. You have to make sure that this person feels seen. I was telling you, I said, you make me feel seen and heard and loved and valuable and sexy and smart and kind. That takes you intentionally being available. And I know we live in a society where everybody likes phones and technology. Go on a date. Gil and I are still dating each other. We talked about marriage is where you date for the rest of your life. That's what we need to understand, is that dating is not just for singles. Dating is something that we do for the rest of our life. So we need to understand that you have to, if it's watching a movie, let's just say you don't have it. When we first got married, we were young, we didn't have a lot of money.
We were broke.
We were broke and we had kids. And so our date night was eating ice cream at the end of the night on the couch together. It doesn't have to be a lot of, but it's just being available. It's turning off your phone, sitting down and having dinner together. It's, you know, finding something. We have cards, games. There's so many ways you can build connection, but a person is not going to feel. Men, I'm going to tell you about ladies. For us, intimacy and sex is all day. It's not you walk in the door and it's just hey.
stripping off your clothes. And
It don't work that way.
this is one thing that Renee taught me in our marriage as it relates to her.
So we ain't talking about all women. He's talking about his wife.
You know, as I said, Renee,
Yes, his wife.
when we had one time, and it was early in our marriage, and she shared that with me, that it starts all day. And this is the catch part. It was after we had made love, and she said that it hurt, y'all. It did. It not hurt as in it was more like a wake up call for me to say, you know what? I need to think more about my wife and the emotional, relational, and the physical and the spiritual side of things more than just the physical. Because men, we always say, it's two things that we got down pat that came inherited in us, which is anger and lust. We got those two things that is just there. So when she shared that with me, said, you know what? I need you to talk to me and spend time with me and do things with me before we get into bed, to where it's not just the sex. It made me feel like, wow, that is something I have to be consciously
But mind
thinking
you, he
about.
said, I said this after we made love.
She didn't deny, she didn't hold back. And during the time, I would have never known this was in the back of her mind or in the forefront of her mind. That was something she shared with me afterwards that said, you know what? She held that back. She met my needs, but then,
It was my need too.
but she didn't. But then she actually shared with me something that was, she was being vulnerable with me. She was being open and she was being transparent with me. And then I had to say, once your spouse delivers that message to you, it is your responsibility to do something with it. Either you're going to ignore it or you're going to do better when it comes to something that they bring with you. So I said, you know what? Okay, I need to step my game up. I ain't no punk.
And I think so many times we miss the opportunity to really connect
Yeah.
during sex and intimacy because we just get up and walk away. We don't really, what are you thinking about? What's going on in your heart? You know, what is, because you're open. That's the time to be, you can be, it's just like you're the most vulnerable after making love. So why not talk? Why not share? You know, some of the things, you know, what do you like, or what don't you like, or what would you like more of? That's the time to do that. And so I see someone asking here, where do we meet?
Well,
Yes.
and Steve, I'll say this. That's exactly it. The listening part is so important to where that's where you can find some serious nuggets that's going to help your relationship is especially after making love with each other. Yes, listen to each other and they're going to give you things that you can do later on in life that is going to help you build upon the intimacy and the trust with together.
Yeah. And I'm going to share this. Okay, so you all know, or maybe you guys don't know, we go to church, Community Bible Church, and we did 21 days of prayer and fasting. Now I told you this is going to be a real raw episode. We actually just came out of 21 days of prayer and fasting, and this is really the first time I can say we have sexually fasted.
It
Did you
wasn't
notice that?
intentional. It wasn't intentional.
Yeah, it's like we have literally sexually fasted. And I can say that being an Air Force wife, the Air Force made us fast without our permission.
It was called a deployment.
It was called a deployment. And so our sex life has always been very healthy and engaging and something we enjoyed and look forward to. But I can say that if as you age, you're going to have to find other ways to reset yourself. And I can say that this fast for us really did, like physically, spiritually, emotionally, and sexually. So everything that God says for you to do is for your good. And in all of our years of being a believer, I can say that I see now why sexual fasts are good for couples, because just like when you've eaten too much, you're like, oh, I'm just tired. You know, you need to fast when everything you eat, you're like, I don't want this, it gets on your nerves. It's the same sexually. We've been together for a long time. I can say that when you fast sexually when you've been married for a long time, it really does reset you. It gives you you see each other with a new set of eyes. It's like, oh, that's sexy. Oh, I like that. I mean, so allow the Bible, allow God's word to govern your relationship, because he can make old things new. He can make broken things fixed. There's things that God can do. And so the Bible says this kind can only come out through prayer and fasting. And so fasting is not just for your physical, it's for your spiritual, it's for your sexual. And I can honestly say I never saw that before until now.
Right. And so as you sit here, we're looking at the comments too. And yes, absolutely. You know, we thank you guys for sharing with us. Thank you guys for joining us. You know, we've been doing these Saturdays now for a few months now.
We've been doing it for almost
a while.
Yeah, a long time.
We've been doing it. So when you think about the topics and the things that we're discussing, we're just trying to plant seeds and gives you guys things to think about in your own relationship, that we've been together 36 years as married couple, and we work with couples all this time, that actually helps with the relationship. So we're trying to make those deposits with you, and we appreciate the interaction and
we love
the
you
messages popping up
guys.
here. We're trying to reach you, but we're also trying to share the information with you and responding to you. We don't just want to say here, and give you just information. We want to let you know this is something, these are the things we're sharing with you that we actually practice every day. So if you actually get to it or get in something out of it that can help you in your relationship, by all means, put it in there, you know, and say that yes, that's a good point, and thumbs ups and likes, and we love that, so we actually try to see them as it's scrolling through, but we also want to make sure we're giving you the information that we've been talking about, we wrote about, and shared with you, that is actually going to be beneficial to you.
Because we don't want to just entertain you. We really want to
I don't
help
think
you
we
to have
entertain.
I want you to have a transformative
Right.
experience every time we come on here live, because time is short.
Yes.
And we got to work while it's day, and we got to make sure that we can't talk about the next generation if we're not doing something to encourage them, inspire them, to lead them, to guide them, and to instruct them. And so when we are on here, it's because we really do. We love our Rich Relationship Refuge community. We love marriage. We love God. We love each other. People who know us and who've been in our life, they know that this is just who we are. And so I know that in social media and in this media world, there are a lot of people that you have to really question. We have 2,200 videos. And we have written books, and like a lot of you guys have known, you guys seen us on HGTV. You've seen us on different things.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just read what Monique said. Yeah, it's definitely super intense afterwards. Woo. No.
But yeah, it's just important. So we wanted to talk today about sex. Is it the mystery of marriage? Well, you guys know that the mystery of marriage is really intimacy, and that's something that you can learn to develop long before you get married. If you're not good at building intimacy with your parents and your friends, you won't be able to do it with your husband. So for those of you who are single, you may watch this.
And say, why are they talking about marriage stuff, man?
No.
We're giving you a peek behind the curtain of what it takes to have a healthy, successful marriage. That, as they say, and we got the receipts from it, 36 years of doing this, that we and working with couples for over 20 years, that says this stuff works.
It does.
We say,
but you got to be willing to do it. You can't just and listen. People, why you videos? So we are on here for an hour, so this hour-long episode is on here. But then we take it and cut it up into little bitty,
and give you little
bitty pieces to get them to come back and watch the long videos. And I appreciate.
Or y'all think, should we make these shorter? Y'all put it in the chat.
Should we do 15 minutes instead of
Should
an
we just
hour?
give you guys just a little snippet and just say, okay, here's like 3 different little things, and we give you this, and then we'll do.
Do you guys like it better when we come here for an hour and talk?
Because it will take us the content that we have ready for you guys over this next year or whatever, as long as God will have us here, it will take us forever, y'all. To get through it. Steve, you're like, no. Well, we appreciate that. So take these things that we're sharing with you and just say, you know what, this is the thing that we can sit down, because we can sit down and watch TV, because I love watching TV and sports and all that kind of stuff. But I would rather spend time talking about the things that I love, which is my marriage and my wife, and the things that we did to develop that. It wasn't done overnight. It was things that have been done. And I think I seen it in a comment. These are the things that help you keep your families and your relationships healthy and thriving. And that's exactly what we want to do. Well, we have to say it, Steve. We're not therapists. We're relationship coaches.
We're marriage coaches.
But we have had some training, through our church as lay counseling and things like that. But we say, if you're in need of therapy, that's important to recognize that you actually go through. Get with healthy professionals and check the things that we're telling you, because we have just always wanted to sow seeds of positivity and health and growth and things that help you get better in your relationship.
And the thing that's different between us and a therapist, our job is to help you practice the tools, the skills, the mindset, and the community that your therapist is going to tell you you're going to need. So when we work with couples, we can, if it's a tools problem, if it's a skills problem, if it's a community problem, we got you.
Come hang out with us.
We got you. But if you need to unpack the pain of your past from your childhood, go see a therapist. We need to stop blaming marriage for the pain of our past. Marriage is not, we say it all the time, there's no such thing as marriage problems. There are only individual problems that we bring into our marriage.
Right.
And would you guys who are on here right now, would you guys all do us a favor today? If everyone who's on here today goes
or if you're watching this later,
if each of you would watch a long video, do you guys know when I say that? Because we really need to get our watch hours up.
Because what that means is it actually helps the algorithm with YouTube and all that push this out to other people because you may know somebody who is struggling, and that's what we're trying to do, reach as many people, not so we can build numbers. We don't care
No.
about that. We want to get information out because we want to make an impact on divorce and unhealthy relationships and people that are
We want
struggling.
to empty hell and make heaven full and make people have healthy relationships in the earth. So when people see you, they're like, what's that? What you got? I got Jesus and I got a good marriage. Because I really believe that apart from God, you can't have a good marriage because guess what? He created marriage. When people see us and we get this, oh, you guys look so great together. It's prayer, fasting, good loving, and a plant-based lifestyle. And I really believe it's all those things, and all those things really do matter. And so what we do doesn't just affect us. Our marriage is ours, but it's our marriage is our gift, God's gift to us, and us giving it back is our gift to Him. And you guys all deserve that. You deserve someone who loves to do this, to share with you, and not someone who's just going to shrink your head or
Tell you just what you want.
psychoanalyze you. But
And Steve, we appreciate you sharing that with your family and friends because that's
thank
exactly what we're trying to
you.
do. And it's so weird because we have our own family members that don't watch us, y'all.
Yeah, don't
But
pay
that's
no
okay.
attention.
That's okay because if we want to reach the people that want to be reached,
Yes.
and who want the help, which is what we're after. But one thing that we want to share, we've been talking a lot about a lot of the positive things and the positive aspects, but we also want to make you aware of some of the things that can be a hindrance to developing intimacy.
Intimacy in your marriage.
You know, and we'll start out the first one with comparison.
Yeah, I kind of talked about that.
Go ahead,
And
talk
God
some more
gave me
about it.
that. You know, He gave me that. People say, I want to test drive. Well, when you're test driving a car, you're not going to compare every other car to that car. But when you're test driving a person, you're going to compare that person to every other person. And that's wrong because the comparison trap can never be good. Because you can't compare my body or her body or his body or he did it this way or he. How could you miss something you never had?
Here's a phrase: comparison breeds dissatisfaction.
Oh, definitely.
Comparison breeds dissatisfaction.
I love that.
The more you compare past experiences, past situations, past relationships with someone else, you're never going to be satisfied with what you have right now.
Because how can you be grateful for what you have if you're comparing it to what you have? Then just like the children of Israel, they wandering around and they start talking about, oh, when we were there, we had this, but you was a slave, boo. So if the person you were with was so great, go back to them. Don't ever compare the person you're with to the person you left. Think about that. You're comparing me to who left you or you left.
Or y'all broke up for
Guess
whatever
what?
reason.
It ended. So why not give me the opportunity to be the best thing you ever knew versus comparing me to what you didn't have, what you lost.
And this is one thing that Renee has said to someone just recently. You can never get behind on your own journey.
Yes.
And that's another thing that can hinder your intimacy is when you realize you are on your own journey.
Yes.
Everything that you're doing, everything that you're experiencing, when you filter it through my own eyes and my own experiences, what can I learn from this situation? It's your own journey.
Yes.
Focus on the thing in the trip that you're on right now and say, what can I do better at? What can I get better at? We've given you a list of things just in this video that you can use as a comparison to my past. A guide, yeah, that's a better way of phrasing it. As a guideline to my past and say, don't compare yourself to other people.
No.
Look at your own life and other areas that you've struggled with. We call them growth areas because you can always get better at it, that you have had growth areas in and say, I want to do better. Well, how do you do better? You have to go back and look at your journey that you've already completed and say, what did I do right and what did I do wrong? And I like what I think someone put it in here. It's just like what a coach would tell you. This is what you did right. This is what you did wrong.
Here's what to do.
Let's focus on the right and try to minimize the wrong.
Yeah. And I want to talk about something else, comparison. Another major thing. I know we live in a technology society. There is never a time when bringing someone else into your marriage is okay.
Yes.
Pornography.
Threesomes.
Marriage is the marriage vow. The marriage bed is undefiled when it's you and your spouse. And when you bring someone else into your marriage, be it through pornography, however, it never is going to make the other person feel like they're enough. To bring someone else into a relationship that's only supposed to be two people and you decide you're going to bring 4 other people into it, there is going to be a problem with that. And I know society wants to make you think it's okay. It's not okay, because if it was okay, God would have designed it that way. And so marriage is designed to be between you and your spouse when it comes to sexual intimacy. And so it should be you and your spouse only, not pornography, not all these other things. And so when you start using these other things, then you're making the other person have to compete with something that's not natural or not the way God ordained it. So keep your marriage between you and your spouse and not anything
And
else.
I'll say this even more, and this is, and ladies hear me. I'm gonna direct this more at the ladies right this section. And I'm nervous about saying this right now.
It's okay, go
But
ahead
I'm gonna
and say
say it. When we talked about emotional, relational, and spiritual. When we say bringing somebody else into your marriage, that includes your girlfriends.
yes.
When I say that, I'm talking about if you're going through in a growth area or you're in a season of challenge with your spouse, when you are bringing other people into your relationship, it's one thing to vent and it's one thing to share. But when you bring someone else into the relationship and tell them the good, the bad, the ugly in your relationship, first you should be sharing that with your spouse.
Yes, only.
And this goes to the guys too, but
Yeah.
I find that this happens more with the
Women.
ladies
Yeah.
because you're natural communicators. You talk more, you want to expose, and you talk from the emotions a lot more. That can be a hindrance to why he's not being vulnerable with you.
Yeah. And that's the thing I was gonna say. I agree with that, baby.
Yeah, go
Being
ahead.
a safe place. So the reason why Gil knows I'm a safe place, because when he tells me things, he's never heard it again. When someone brings something to you being vulnerable, you don't say, "Girl, guess what he told me?
Or-
he told me he liked me rub his," and then your friend says that's not healthy.
Or your friends, when y'all get together, they have this air or this attitude about you that can, and guys are not stupid. They're gonna pick up on it and they're gonna say, you know what? She's been talking
Yeah.
about some things that maybe she shouldn't have mentioned.
Yeah. And another thing that's important is, why would you tell someone else? And I was young, I didn't know any better. You better quit telling people how good your husband is in bed. Okay? Because guess what? The only way they know this is because you told them. And then when they start coming on to your husband trying to figure out what's going on, you talk too much. Joseph's biggest problem was that he shared the wrong thing with the wrong people. Everything that's going on in your life does not need to be shared with people. Share it with the Lord. Your parents, your girlfriends. When you get married, the person you should be the most open and transparent with is God and your spouse. Not your kids, not your sisters, not your mother, your spouse.
And this may sound crazy, and sometimes it's the simplest things that bring the most wisdom. Share it with your spouse when you have a problem with them.
Yes. Tell them. It sounds real crazy. If I have a problem with Gil, guess who
Please
knows
tell
it?
me.
I'm going to tell Gil.
If I have an issue or a challenge or something that is on my mind and on my heart with our relationship, I'm going to come to Renee.
Yeah. If I have a problem with Gil, I'm not going to go to someone else, because the Bible says if you have an ought against your brother, go to your brother. It doesn't say if you have an ought against your brother, go to your friend. So I have to go to the person I have to, because the only person that can fix this
Is this.
is this.
And then the last one that we want to talk about, this is talking about the comparison and all those different things and challenges. When you're grateful and you have gratitude towards your connection that you've built on, you think about it. We're talking about a positive side now. You've invested relationally, you've invested emotionally, you invested spiritually, and now you add gratitude for the connection and the intimacy that you've built. That is what pleases the Lord.
Yeah. And the person you're with.
Trust me, and it's going to pay huge dividends in the bedroom.
Especially when your love language is word, like my love language is words of affirmation. I'm a sucker for a word. I mean, I don't give.
You so
and stuff.
fine, girl. See, y'all see it? Y'all see it? So I mean, that's just really good. I mean, and it works. See, that was action in action. See,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I just think it's important that you realize that it's work, and it takes time. Gil, you stop. Now he growling, y'all. So it's important that you realize that no one just has a good relationship. All of these things we talk about, it may seem overwhelming, it may seem a lot. Listen to this video little by little. Or better yet, go to Barnes and Noble and get the book.
And then we want to finish up with one last thing that we talk about. We on the book we actually talk about a code. When we talk about codes, you know, you have cheat codes when you old video games and stuff like that. those cheat codes give you benefits to stuff that the normal folks don't actually get to
Yes.
see. So the cheat code, we're gonna give you a cheat code for a healthy marriage. Do y'all want a cheat code? Thumbs up if you want a cheat code if you're watching. Because I won't go until I see at least 1 or 2 thumbs up or hearts or something like that. We ain't gonna say nothing. We'll just look at y'all. I'll just read some comments. Give me a heart or a thumbs up or something. Say, I want a cheat code.
Yeah.
Okay, I see one. Just beyond. Y'all saved them. Y'all saved them.
Thank you.
So here's a good code when it comes. Okay, we see.
Okay, we love y'all.
Yeah, thank y'all. A cheat code. We call it T.I.E.
Yes.
T.I.E.
Yes.
Just remember T.I.E. If you want a cheat code to your marriage, T.I.E. starts with trust.
Yes.
All the things that we talked about, you have to be in a position where you trust each other unconditionally. Yes. When you are in that position, or when you present it, and you have to be the person to initiate it sometimes. Yeah. That is going to pay huge dividends if you want to build that healthy marriage. Yes. Trust each other unconditionally.
Yes.
You want to give them number 2?
Identity. Your identity has got to be in Christ. It can't be the clothes you wear, the car you drive, the person. Your identity has to be in Christ. And your identity is in Christ. Your identity is unshakable because it's not based on something you can buy or you earn or you deserve.
Or how you perform in bed.
Yeah. It's your identity is in your relationship with the Lord. And so that's one of the things that's an anchor that will give you strong roots and the ability to be able to have empathy and understanding. Because when you understand you understand that your identity comes from Christ. You give that same grace to the other person you're in a relationship with.
Well, you already gave you the third one. The third one was empathy.
Empathy.
So remember I said T.I.E. T.I.E.
Trust, identity, and empathy is what makes your relationship. It binds it all together. You talk about a threefold cord is not easily broken. Well, those what that cord is. Trust, identity, and empathy.
That's the code to having that healthy marriage, to build upon the intimacy when it comes to what does it take. Yeah. We already told you what it takes. If you didn't catch it or you're watching this later, you got to go back. I want to say, I didn't see the timestamp. I ain't going to give you time. Just watch the whole video. We appreciate it anyway. Yeah. And you'll get the list of all the things that we talked about in this session on this Saturday Live with Gil Renée from the Rich Relationship Podcast or Refuge. I said podcast because it's going to be a podcast later.
Yes, it is. And so we love you guys. We want to give you guys some time to answer questions.
Or even just comment. Put comments in there.
Yeah, put comments in. We'll answer it. Okay, so someone asked, where did we meet? We are both from Detroit. We had a summer job. And we...
13 and 14.
Yeah, had a summer job in Detroit. I was working, and first we worked out in the field cutting out...
Weeds.
And then they put us in a classroom, which I don't know why they did that.
Well, they put us in a classroom to teach us some skills. You know, like how to interview and how to talk and all that kind of stuff. Stuff that's going to help you in the workforce, so to speak. I don't know what job I was going to do at 13, 14, but they were paying. They were actually making deposits.
Yes. So, and then Gil walked into the room and I saw him and I was like, oh my gosh, that brother is fine. How do I get his attention? And so I sat there and I was like, okay, I rolled my pencil off the desk and...
While I was walking by.
While he was walking by and he picked it up. And I said, I was going to say hi to you, but I wasn't sure if you'll say hi back. And then he said...
I always say hi to lovely young ladies.
And I have been smitten ever since. So we started dating for real at 18. And then we got married at 21.
Yep. And been together ever since.
Yes.
That's the abbreviated version. We recorded a long episode.
There's an episode.
I want to say it was actually episode 1 of the podcast that you can hear the whole story and we talk about our background and things like that. But we appreciate you guys hanging out with us Saturday.
And wanting to know our story.
We always say we thank you for your investment time. We don't take this lightly. We just want to make deposits in everybody and in your relationships because there is enough out there, whether it's some craziness, whether it's you can watch on TV and even streams that here in your whatever your streaming platform that you use, there's people always talking negatively about marriage or relationships or always showing the drama and the dark side and the bad side. Right. Well, we want to show you and talk to you about some of the good things and things that you can do to build upon your relationship to make it better. If you want a better relationship, you have to do your part.
Yes, you have to do your part. You can't look at the other person and blame them.
And say, make it better.
Yes, and you also can't think it's going to get better because time goes by. It's not going to. If you do the same thing every day for 10 years, you basically are doing the same thing. You got to do something different. You get new information, new insight, new community, a new environment. And that's what we're trying to offer you. So we have lots of long videos. Those of you who are on here watching it, like I said, if you guys would watch some of our long videos, it will really help our channel to grow. It'll help us to help more people. It'll help us to be able to do this just full time, which I do this full time.
Yeah.
This is what I do.
And she does an amazing job. So all the comments, Renee answers a lot of them, but I put my comments in there.
Does, Gil
if you read them,
too.
if you read something, if you put a comment in there, we're going to respond back.
Yes,
we
we
do.
will.
We are a team of 2. This is it. This is the whole staff.
Well, we do have some.
We have some people.
We have some AI team members.
Yep.
Yes, we do have some AI. I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all may not like AI, but it helps us. It helps us to help you. Helps us to serve you.
Be more efficient.
We answer your questions.
But that's
ourselves.
us.
We
That's
answer
us.
them.
But we appreciate you guys
Yes.
hanging out with us with this hour. We went over a little bit over time today.
Yeah.
But that's okay because you guys are worth it.
Yeah, we love you guys.
So check out the long content. We'll see you back here next week, next Saturday, 12 Central
Well,
Standard.
actually-
Well, no, we won't.
Okay, next Saturday is Valentine's weekend.
So we give you permission to not be here because we
Yeah,
ain't gonna
we're
be
not
here.
gonna be here. You guys watch a video. We'll have something up. You guys, we have lots of content. But I'm going to celebrate my husband for Valentine's Day. We're going away. We're gonna have a very, very hot weekend. So we won't be here next Saturday at 12 noon.
Go
Watch
celebrate
one of
your
our
boo.
videos. Celebrate the person you love. The Bible says
See,
we're a man.
Steve even said it. We replied to the comment.
Thank
Yeah, we
you.
appreciate that.
Thank you so much. So listen, the Bible says where a man's treasure is, there also where his heartbeat. Maybe she don't feel like you love her because you ain't spent no time, no money. And ladies, maybe he don't feel like you love him because you don't do what you did to get him.
Whatever it is, you can fill in the blank on that.
We both have to be what it took to get him, it takes to keep him. I'm still doing that. We have to
Same
still do
here,
it.
guys. If whatever it took to, y'all see that I made her blush. If you didn't see that earlier, you better go do it. You got that superpower because she
Yes.
with you.
Yes,
So whatever
she
you
can make
did,
me
you did it
blush.
right. Go back and do it.
And I
again.
can make him blush too.
That's right. But we can call it off now. We'll see y'all later. We'll see y'all next
guys,
2 weeks from now.
Yes, we'll see you guys 2 weeks from now. We love you. Thank you for watching. Please, please, please watch our long videos. It will help our channel.
We'll
We
see
love
you.
you. Let's say everybody's name. Thank you.
Steve and just be yourself. And Monique, appreciate you guys.
We love you guys. If you're watching now or later, put your comments in there. We'll say your name next time.
All right.
We
see
love you guys. Thank you so much.